Pittsburgh Steelers fans, the calendars say in March. I'm feeling good. And when I think of March, I think marching closer to the Pittsburgh Steelers regular season. And there are so many questions to be answered. We know you got them. We don't know if we have the answers, but we're going to sure well try. We're not hungover right now. We're going to be hungover again. But for Tony Defeo and myself, we're just here to be with our Steeler family from behind the steel curtain and beyond. So thanks so much for joining us. Tony Defeo, my man, a beautiful day if you're listening and watching as we do this live on Monday. If you're listening later, it's Monday. It was close to 60 in Maryland today. What about you in Pittsburgh?
Oh, it was fantastic. Beautiful. I mean, not right now. Now it's kind of rainy, but it's still warm enough and it's still winter, so I'll take it. And from what I understand, you did something great this weekend. Do you have any girlfriends named Sarah when you were growing up?
You know what? I had a crush on a girl named Sarah. I never dated a Sarah, but there were plenty.
Did you
I had
make
a list.
smile?
And there was plenty that my kiss was on their list. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, dude. Thanks for bringing that up. I went to one of my bucket lists, and you know me, I'm an 80s guy. And one of my favorite groups of all times, Huey Lewis and the News. I've seen them 5 times. Another favorite group of mine is Hall & Oates, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Dude, if you and I look that good at 73 and 71, respectively, and are that cool at 73 and 71, but yes, I just said Daryl Hall and John Oates are cool. It was awesome. I had the time of my life. I took my 12-year-old son. He loved it. So it was just a great feeling all around. They played all the hits. We saw them in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it was just extraordinary. So a bucket list thing checked off, but I'd probably go see them again. They're that good. I know they're touring in the summer. Well, they're touring now. This was the first night of their tour, their new tour.
Wow.
So it was really cool. Squeeze opened up for them. So they were just as good as well. So, there you go. We've got the week started off right with going to that show. I'm glad you brought it up.
And a good time.
Here's the thing, though. We've got one of our greats here at BTSC. And one of the greats here doesn't like John Oates. And the thing about that is the fact that he blames John Oates for the Steelers losing in the playoffs against Jacksonville 3 years ago. And that's because John Oates played the national anthem. And I've never forgiven him for saying that. Now he brings it up. Jeff Hartman just brings that up all the time just to needle me.
I think it's more Sean Spence's fault than John Oates.
Sean Spence.
Yeah.
And maybe Keith Butler and maybe Todd Haley.
Artie didn't have a great day. Yeah. So
it was a rough day all around. I bet you if John Oates would have suited up, he was probably 69 at that time, 68 years old. He would have probably done so much better. So with that being said, that's a great segue, Tony, because that defense was horrible and they made it to the playoffs. They had a 13-3 year. The 2019 Steelers defense and what promises to be still a pretty good 2020 Steeler defense, depending on personnel, but they definitely have the swagger now. The defense is so much better and they're looking so good. And there's a feeling that even if with that offense that was so bad last year, there was a feeling that if they made the playoffs, they could have made some noise just because the defense was so good. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all the sacks. I mean, they were among the league leaders, if not the league leaders in sacks, and then the takeaways. They were opportunistic for the first time in forever. Yeah, I mean, they could have made some noise if they would have been able to sneak in. It's just too bad that they couldn't really. They didn't really have the components on offense.
Yep, everything got ducked up. So with that being said. And there I go, one time so far. So we'll keep that being said tally. So with looking at that, Tony, though, this year, it seems like Ben Roethlisberger's back. He's throwing a ball as of the 21st of February. He looks like he's getting himself into shape. There's a lot of promise for 2020. We've talked a lot, and on the Hater at Homer show yesterday with Jeff, and big shout out to my buddy Lance Williams. Those guys were talking about the window being now, and the window now is something that do you build for the future, or you just go for that little crack, or not even a crack, that this much, and try to jam it all the way open and get that ring right now with maybe about 2 years left. So they were talking about the draft yesterday and where you go with the first couple picks if you go for immediate impact, and that was kind of their that was kind of where they were looking at going. So, we're not going to get on that topic right now, but the thing is, it seems like right now that this team is going in that direction, and it's a win now mentality. The salary cap is a tough thing, and their decision in the next couple of days on Bud Dupree, we talked about that extensively last week. We're going to hear the pretty soon. We're going to hear what the decision on Bud Dupree, whether he's going to be back next year as a franchise player, what that's going to be. And that's going to tell you really where they think that they're going with this defense. But that does bring up a major question. That brings up a major question. And the question that it brings up is this. There's been great defenses in the past, okay? There's been major great defenses in the past. The Steel Curtain defense, the Quiver and Quake, the Blitzburgh defense of the mid-90s. And I don't even know if they had a name. I mean, I know they had the Tau, the Big Nasty D. I don't know what the 2000s defense with the Super Bowl years of 2005 and 2008 would be. I'm not even sure what that name was. But what was the name for that? Did they have a name? They have a nickname that were led by Palomalu and
not really.
And James Harrison.
Maybe Coach Dad's defense is about. I think they really didn't have an official defense or an official nickname, I should say. But I think Blitzburgh was still trying to be worked back into the lexicon whenever they became a dominant defense again. But there was nothing really official like the Steel Curtain or like Blitzburgh was in the 90s. They really didn't have that back then. But I mean, they didn't really need one either.
If they did have a name that we're forgetting, please let us know. But here you go. The reason I'm bringing up those defenses, they had one thing in common, Tony, all three of them, and it's one word. And they had many players that exhibited this characteristic. And what was it?
Intimidation.
Intimidation. Absolutely. Now, the question is, the 2019 and now the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers, where do they rank as far as an intimidation factor when you bring up those great defenses of the past? So that's one thing I want you to ponder. The question and answer period will probably start in about 20 minutes as an attempt to go ahead and curb my ADHD. I'm not really paying attention as far as right now on the live chat, but we'll go ahead and look at that in about, like I said, in about 20 minutes. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. So if you do have questions or you have comments, and I've already seen some comments up there, which I'll address one right now. One of our great contributors on Behind the Steel Curtain, Flip, brings up the fact that the D has been a top 5 defense the past 2 years. True. And the top 10 in 2018. 2017, they weren't. That was a pretty rough defense. Really was.
Especially after Shazier went down.
And that's and we're talking about 16 and 17. Those defenses were, fairly suspect. I know they did well sack-wise in 17. They still had 56, I think, that year, but they were scored upon in droves. And they don't, even the difference between 19 and 18, they look like a completely different defense.
Night and day.
As far as just that that it factor. And you saw, gosh, I shudder to think what the record would have been without that defense in 2019. Right. The Dolphins would probably be justified in that trade, and they'd probably be looking a whole lot better as far as that goes. Now, Tony, we something we always like to bring up here is the fact that how we got our start here on Behind the Steel Curtain Radio is we got our start on behindthesteelcurtain.com, the blog site. And I just mentioned Flip earlier, and Flip's one of the writers on that site. You see a lot of you see a lot of Jeff Hartman and Dave Schofield, the editor and deputy editor as well. Tony, you write a lot. I write a good bit as well. And I have an article coming up this week, sometimes that I just submitted, and it's about the top 10 intimidators in Pittsburgh Steelers history. Now, we're not going to go over them because I want you to click on it. I want you to read it because it's actually a pretty good read. And if you just like pictures, I put pictures of every single guy in there too. I've got some honorable mention guys. You and I, before the show, I asked you who you thought your number one intimidator was, and you mentioned somebody different than I actually had. And I had him in the top 5, but not at number 1. And it's great because you look at the top 5 and you could probably put any one of them in the number 1 spot. So it's subjective.
Right.
And you could, but the guy I thought is probably going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to think right away. And then there's others that would probably think, that more of the current guys would be on that list. But the thing about that, let me rephrase that, the more recent guys would be on that list. But when I was making that list and I did the honorable mention, there was only one guy from the current Pittsburgh Steelers that I put on the list. He was on offense. And he was actually an honorable mention. And we're not going to debate this fact. But in fact, when I was throwing up suggestions on a text message to Dave and Jeff, they actually thought this guy was more of a finesse guy than an intimidator. But I put down an honorable mention. I put down Marquise Pouncey, an offensive player, as far as an intimidating guy, an intimidating Steeler. There's nobody on that defense that I put on. Now, there's fantastic standouts, Tony. I mean, we could talk about the Pro Bowlers and the All Pros that were on that defense this year. Mm-hmm. You have Minkah Fitzpatrick. You have Cam Hayward. You have, of course, TJ Watt. You have Devin Bush Jr. You have Vince Williams, which I could probably make a case, if I'm going to make a case for anybody as far as intimidating, maybe Vince Williams. Mm-hmm. But you look at these guys, Cam, you have Joe Hayden. I think I mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick. Bud Dupree is still a Steeler right now. He could be in 2020. We're still waiting word, like we mentioned earlier. But when I mention any of those guys, none of those guys to me evoke intimidation. Mm-hmm. They evoke being a great player.
Right.
But do you feel that they're intimidating players?
No, I don't. But it's a different era too. I mean, somebody mentioned the Ryan Clark hit on McAfee or McGahee from the 2008 AFC Championship game. But that seemed like light years ago. It's just a completely different era. Before all the headshots were taken out. I mean, a player and the shenanigans, like the intimidating shenanigans that got like Greg Lloyd when Al Toon was knocked out by Thomas Everett back in 1989. Greg Lloyd got on his hands and knees and did the 1-2-3 count, WWF style at the time. If that happened today, that's all ESPN would talk about for a week, and they'd want him suspended.
Oh,
Jack Lambert,
absolutely.
Yeah, Jack Lambert. You always see that famous video of him, Cliff Harris, throwing Cliff Harris on the ground, and then the Browns running back, pushing him in the helmet and pointing in his face. I mean, he'd be suspended today. So a lot of that's taken out of the game, and of course, all the headshots are trying to legislate out of the game. So it's harder to really feel like an intimidating defense today.
Yeah, I get that, but there's intimidating players still in the league on defense.
Right.
Um, I could definitely say that, but my thought is I just don't feel, and this is not a rip on this team at all. Um, you know, and everybody in the live chat they're backing up what you're saying, Tony. They're saying you can't do the same things. Michael O'Malley mentions nowadays you can't ear slap or kick somebody in the nuts or elbow them in the jaw. I mean,
you can't do any of that stuff.
One of the things that I was researching Joe Green, and when I was researching, and Joe Green's on the list.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Absolutely.
And he was famous. I remember he body slammed a guy.
Mm-hmm.
His rookie year. I mean, I think he ripped somebody's helmet off. He was one of those guys. He was intimidating. But when I was researching him, I didn't realize this. He was famous for punching right before the snap.
Yeah,
he punched people.
Yeah.
And you could do that back then. I get it. And you can't do that now, but there's still guys that here's the thing. The definition for one of the definitions for intimidation is eliciting fear or hesitation out of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the there's many definitions, but that's one of the ones that I put out there. But I just don't feel that there's anybody here that is just a major intimidator. But am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong. Is it just because they're not allowed to be? But now Ezra mentions here, Cam can intimidate. Is he the number one intimidator on this defense?
He's definitely, as I remember a local writer called him recently, the big daddy of that locker room. So he's definitely the guy that keeps things in order for that defense. So he probably has that same kind of demeanor on the field when he's talking to his opponents.
But is he a shaking in your boots kind of guy?
I wouldn't say that. No. You don't see those kind of hits from him. I think it would have to come from a career of vicious hits and those kind of things. And you really don't see that from him. I mean, you see a lot of great plays over the years from him. He's certainly a tremendous player. But no, I wouldn't call him a shaking in your boots kind of guy. No.
Sean Manahan, another good contributor to our shows, mentioned this. Minkah is intimidating the opposing QBs in the passing game. Now, I will say that too. I'll agree with that because in the second half of last year, the reason he didn't get the interceptions, they threw against him. I think the stat was twice. They threw to his area. So, I mean, he didn't have the pass defenses and he didn't have much action over there,
right?
Because they were afraid to go near him.
Right.
So I guess you could look at him as, Michael O'Malley backs that up and says 2 targets.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could put him in as an intimidator. I would not put him in the top 10. I still don't know if I'm going to put him in the top 25, but that's a pretty big thing. And that's going to lead to the defense being known as intimidating.
Right.
So that's a pretty good thing there. I guess maybe we always talk about this, Tony, as, kind of like after a loss, it's kind of a grief session. It's kind of a support group. And now you guys are getting me to come around and maybe thinking that this defense is, that this defense is a little bit more of a intimidating team than I thought. I got to laugh here, Tony, because this is funny. This is making fun of you, and I love it because we're buddies here. Matt O'Grady says, "Tony, can you get a little closer?"
Well, I'm sitting at my desk in front of my laptop. If I did this, would you like that? I mean, I'm only going to think it's a matter of a foot. What do you want me to do? I don't understand.
What's funny though, Tony?
Damn you, internet!
I was a lot farther. I actually moved my camera in to get my head a little closer to yours because when I started, mine was like here. Yeah. So I actually moved in a little bit so that we can do that. But
I could do this and ruin the show for everybody.
And of course, I would probably say this, and this is funny. And Matt, we know you're joking with us, and we appreciate you. So thank you. That's awesome. And he says, seriously, just appreciate you guys and just playing. And we know you're playing. So, I mean,
Oh yeah, we know you're
there's
just messing
no
around.
offense taken whatsoever.
Hey,
But, the thing is, though, Tony, I would probably say this, and you can't because you won't, because it's just your demeanor. But Tony's probably one of the most beloved as far as the podcasts and the most hated as far as the articles.
I'm like Troy Polamalu.
So yeah, there you go.
On the field, it's like I'm ready to knock you out, but on the podcast, it's all love.
Matt's going into the Tony eye cam. That's great. But what I'm saying is, like, guys will like fight you to go ahead and defend Tony on our podcast networks. So that's funny. And now,
hey, I got rid of the light. I know the light. I realized what people were talking about, so I got rid of the light. So I'm coming around slowly.
Yeah, there you go. And now somebody's want to know when you're going to get the fancy microphone. I'm sure that'll be one day too. We're baby stepping in here. Last year at this time, we were on Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah,
and all the comments were, "We can't hear you guys. You guys sound horrible."
Yeah, and who knows? I've come so far in a year. Maybe I'll do my own show. Maybe I'll come around and every time we do a show, I have somebody saying, "When's Tony Talk?" or whatever they want to call it. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen someday.
Petition. You have to petition BTSC and for Taco Tuesday with Tony. So getting back to the subject, and that was one of my many BAD asides that I always get to, but it was too fun, and you can't pass that up. Somebody mentioned this, and I gotta find it. It was about TJ Watt, and I agree with this as well. And it was Sean Manahan, and he says TJ Watt can wreck a game plan, but he does it clean.
Right.
So that is a good question. And here's the question here. Do you have to be dirty to be an intimidator? Because I consider Troy Polamalu as being an intimidator, but probably one of the most mild-mannered guys around, and no one really accused him of being dirty. Now, another mild-mannered guy was Hines Ward. Everybody that was not a Steeler fan considered him dirty. In fact, in 2009, Sports Illustrated did a poll of players and said that I thought he was number one.
No, he was second. But still, I don't remember.
I thought he was number one.
He might have been. Maybe I'm off, but I know he was up there for sure.
And you know what? He's retired, and I live in Maryland. And anytime the Baltimore Sun does your most hated athlete, it's still Hines Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore fans still hate that man with a passion because he'd kick the hell out of you and get up and smiling. He would just smile. So he was an intimidator.
Right.
Mike Smith.
Keith Rivers.
Love this.
Yeah.
Keith Rivers' jaw is still scared.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I think he ruined Keith Rivers' career, actually.
You didn't really hear much about him after that.
No, I think he really hurt his career. But people were saying back to TJ Watt, yeah, he does it in a clean way. I don't think he's intimidating, but
here's
will he be?
Well, I mean, it's all about once his reputation starts to grow. I'll give you a great example of somebody who wasn't a physical player in the least. People that are somebody that we make fun of all the time, or at least in Steeler Nation, and that's Deion Sanders. He was not a physical cornerback, but you would never in a million years want to throw in his area for his entire career, and he's in a Hall of Fame. So sometimes it's just about having the reputation of you don't want to run that guy's way. You don't want to throw that guy's way because he's going to make a play. Like Ed Reed, you didn't want to throw it anywhere near his position on the field when he was playing center field back as a safety. So sometimes it's just about you could be intimidating without being physical. It's just about your play.
So live chat, I'm going to bring you in on this real quick, and I just need a yes or no. And let's try to get a few of these. All you have to do is type yes or no. Get out the BTSC crystal ball. 20 years from now, is TJ Watt on the top 10 list as intimidators. Michael O'Malley already says he's an intimidator for sure. One guy you have to account for every play.
There you go.
There you go. So what do you think? Tape Boys, 61. As currently constructed, Bud Dupree would be the intimidator from a physical size and speed component. And that hit he put on the Miami Dolphins player, Matt Moore, in the playoffs a few years ago, man. That was
right.
Yeah, that was definitely it. So 20 years. Let's go down the line. Just Me says yes. Snowman says yes. Gyro says, is that 1,000,000% yes? Let's bring that one up. I don't have time to count, but
I think
there's a lot of zeros there.
Yeah.
So Gyro's emphatic. He's saying yes. Tape Boy says yes. Mike Smith, Jonas Wedlick, Michael O'Malley, Sean Manahan is saying top 15. Yeah, so maybe I go ahead and put him in honorable mention for right now. I will go ahead and put him on that list. And so that's great. Is Minka on that list in 20 years?
Not as a physical intimidator, no, but he could make it as a an Ed Reed type, somebody you don't want to throw in his area at all.
Well, I think, and the other thing, and we talked about Troy Polamalu, who didn't make the top 10 but made honorable mention. The thing about him is he was definitely an intimidator, just because you knew he was coming and you knew he was going to hit you. And you knew he was dangerous. You knew he could wreck your game, and definitely didn't seem to be a physical intimidator. I don't know if he's going to be on that list, because I don't picture him as an intimidator either. Ezra, love Ezra. Another great contributor. In fact, everybody in the live chat, great contributors, so we appreciate y'all. TJ will be a Hall of Famer as a linebacker. Yes, he's going to be an intimidator. Wow, gosh, I'd love that. So that begs another question. Here's a question now. So this is where you get my ADHD going and you get me jumping around. But we pretty much talked about, the Steelers as intimidators. The 2020 intimidators, there is sort of an intimidation factor here. Now, who on this team is in the Hall of Fame? Ben Roethlisberger. Let's just not waste our time. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to waste our time on that. We all know that.
Right.
On the offense, the only one on the offense right now that I'm thinking yes right now would besides Ben, you could probably look at DeCastro or Pouncey as possibilities. They definitely have all pros behind them. They have, gosh, Pouncey even had a vote for all pro this year, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I just lost. Tony, you still there?
I'm here. How you doing?
Yeah, this is really strange. I just left I can still hear you, but I just left the broadcast studio.
No, you're there. You're there.
Now I'm here double. Okay, we are having lots of problems here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I'm here. This is really weird. Let's try this. Tony?
What's up, Bryan? Everything looks good on my end.
Yes. I'm still having a problem, so I'm going to have you go ahead and take over while I fix this.
Okay.
Are you hearing an echo with me?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. So if you're not hearing an echo with me, I'll just keep going. That'll be no problem.
Okay.
So let me just try that. See if that. Okay, this is really odd. Because on the bottom of my screen, I'm seeing two of me. And I haven't been drinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if there are any audio problems on your end, please with me, let me know, Tony.
Okay.
So you have the Steelers as Hall of Famers, and we're talking already about TJ Watt. So we're in agreement that he is going to be a Hall of Famer probably. But on the offensive side of the ball, maybe Choo-Choo. You know,
he has a long way to go yet, though, of course.
Yeah, I think it's way too early to think about something like that.
Right.
Other than that, I guess Pouncey or DeCastro. I mean, what's your gut say on both of those guys?
Well, I think Pouncey will get in based on reputation. I mean, people are down on him right now, especially for his play over the last couple of years. But I mean, you know, why was he voted to so many All Pros and Pro Bowls during his career if he wasn't worthy over? I mean, we're talking about a decade's worth of work on his resume, and so I think he'll get in. I think DeCastro is going to be another Alan Faneca when he's done. So I think it might not they're not going to be first ballot Hall of Famers, either one of them, but they'll get in eventually.
Okay, so you know I'm still getting the echo on my end, and it's really odd, but we can go ahead and keep this going. So Ezra says that Pouncey is still definitely going to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And so that's great. I would love to see a guy like Pouncey make. I mean, his play has been fantastic. So if he made the Hall of Fame, excellent. On the defensive side of the ball, let's put our eyes back on the crystal ball. Let's shake it up and see what we get here. I'm going to throw out some names, and you just say yes or no. I mean, I know it might be too early to tell on some of these guys, especially on Devin Bush, but go ahead and say, just based on what you've seen of these guys' careers so far, how many Hall of Famers do we possibly have on the Steelers defense? Cam Hayward.
Yes.
Really? I think he misses out.
Okay.
We're going to pass up Javon Hargrave. Stephon Tuitt.
No.
Let's go to TJ Watt. We've already established probably yes. How about Bud Dupree?
No.
Vince Williams?
No.
Devin Bush Jr.
I'm just going to go out and take a leap of faith and say yes.
I like it. Terrell Edmonds.
No. No.
Okay, I'm going to say yes on that one.
Okay. That'd be great. Hey,
that would be awesome.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm really dead wrong and people send me nasty emails.
Yeah, no, seriously. What we've seen so far, no. So and Sean Manahan says, hell no.
Hell no. Facebook.
I kind of agree with you. Bush could be that kind of guy. Hopefully that continues. Joe Hayden.
No, I don't think so. I'd like to be wrong there. I mean, he's had a great career, but I don't think it's Hall of Fame worthy. And he's had enough of a resume that you could start talking about that now, because it's been a decade. But I'm just going to say no.
He'll be nominated, but I'll say no.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to make the top 15 at the end for the vote, but you'll see him on the list, on the short list or so. So here's a name. Minkah Fitzpatrick.
See, he's so young and so full of potential. It's like Devin Bush. I'm just going to take a leap of faith and say yes.
That would be awesome. Okay. I'm going to pass up Steven Nelson. I'm going to say no. I'd love to see him make it, and that means that he's amazing going forward, but I'm not seeing it right now. But like somebody said about Hayden, Hall of Very Good, and that was Sean Manahan. Great comment. All right, here's the last one I'm going to bring up. Mike Tomlin.
Ooh. Well, if Bill Cowher gets in, yeah, yes. But then again, Bill Cowher was it was a special centennial thing that got him in. So it might be kind of apples and oranges as far as if he has to go through the regular channels. But yeah, I mean, he has the resume. Yes.
Bill Cowher was getting in regardless.
Eventually, yes.
I don't think in the next couple of years, but I would have said if this didn't happen, probably around 2025 to 2030, you would have seen him get in. So I don't think he needed that special vote.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not ultimately, but probably to get in as soon as he did.
And there's one guy that I thought should have gotten in before, and only one guy, and that was Tom Flores.
Yeah.
I thought Tom Flores got passed over.
Right.
One of the reasons that I think Jimmy Johnson and Bill Cowher got in right now is because of their ties with Fox and CBS. They're high-profile guys, and they were able to do those inductions in a special way before everybody else. Everybody knew they were eventually going to get in. So I think it was one of those things that they're going to say, let's put them in right now. But I was really bummed to see Tom Flores not get in. So with Mike Tomlin, if you look at what he needs to do just to tie Bill Cowher, he needs to go 16-16 in the next 2 seasons. And he has the exact same record as Bill Cowher.
Right.
So I'm thinking that 8-8 the next 2 years would be bad.
Right.
And I'm not expecting 8-8 the next 2 years.
No, not if Ben's back to old Ben.
And I'm not expecting less than 8-8 as well.
And you have to look at some of the people that are, like we talked about before, John Madden, Tony Dungy, Bud Grant, who else? Marv Levy, or not Marv Levy, the guy, the Bills' old coach. Is that Marv Levy? Yeah.
Marv Levy.
Yeah. So they're all in, I believe. They're all in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean.
Yeah, Marv Levy's in.
Yeah.
In fact, I was there the year after Marv Levy got in because he inducted Jim Kelly. Mm-hmm. And I was there for Jim Kelly and John Stallworth's induction. Which leads me to something interesting. I don't know if a lot of people realized this when they saw it on the list, but Troy Polamalu and Bill Cowher are getting it in on the same day, and I'm hoping to go. But Donnie Shell has to wait until September 18th. There's a separate induction. Not for all of them. They're just splitting it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that either. I found it out last week. I was surprised, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's just he's still in,
You're in.
Yeah.
So now the Steelers are taking votes and nominations for the next guys to get into their Hall of Honor.
Ooh.
So here's some guys to throw out. You don't have to throw in Troy Polamalu, because even though he was not put in by the Steelers, he automatically gets put in because he's in the Hall of Fame. So that's what they do. If you go to the Hall of Fame, you're immediately in. So who's the next couple of guys you seem to will be getting in there?
Did they have a list?
No, they're taking nominations right now. Right away, I'm thinking Greg Lloyd is a guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Greg Lloyd. And did Carnell Lake get in yet?
I don't believe so.
Because he had a very underrated career. He was pretty disruptive during his time. And obviously he went from, in a pinch, he had to go from safety, Pro Bowl safety, to corner in 95 when Woodson.
And went to the Pro Bowl as a corner.
Went to the Pro Bowl, yeah. So, I mean, there's somebody I think is going to get in eventually. And so there's somebody I would nominate. And that's just off the top of my head right there. And guys like who played on the recent Super Bowl era. I can think of a couple of names. If they're already in, please forgive me. But guys like Joey Porter, he's definitely a candidate, and and James Ferrier, people like that. I mean, they're definitely Hall of Honor guys. Eventually.
I agree. And then you might look back at some other players too, like a Mike Wagner,
right?
And guys like that. So I'm not sure everybody who's in, because the first year they just did Hall of Famers.
Right.
Then last year they added some guys like I think Faneca.
Mm-hmm.
Like a big guy that wore 66 and played the same position.
Right.
So there's definitely some names that are being brought up. Heath Miller, Big Snack,
Heath Miller,
Casey Hampton, Ryan Clark, James Ferrier. One of my favorite all-time Steelers that I don't think will ever get into the Hall of Fame. Willie Parker, that would be a good Steeler.
Right. How about Gary Anderson? He was among the best at his position when he was in the 80s, when he kicked here in the 80s and early 90s, you know. So I mean, there's a guy you could see getting in there at some point.
Yeah, I actually think he should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for everything that he's done in his career. Mm-hmm. Morton Anderson's another guy, even though he wasn't a Steeler, definitely deserves to get in, but there's a kicker bias.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So at this time, Tony, let's go ahead and bring up the live chat and get to the Q&A part of the show.
Let's do it.
Somebody just nominated Lance Williams for the Steeler Hall of Fame. He is definitely in the BTSC Hall of Fame. I will say that. He gets my first vote.
Right.
And I think you get my second vote there. I know there is a BT.
I'm already in.
Be a BTSC Hall of Fame. Are you in?
I don't know if it was legit though. I don't know if it was legit, but I was definitely put in there. So I'll take it.
That's great. I'm never getting in. I'm gonna be the Susan Lucci of the BTSC Hall of Fame.
Based on all your fans and the live chat every week, you're definitely going to get in.
I have no fans. This is self-deprecating bad. So, Santonio Holmes, there's an interesting just for that catch.
A very underrated playoff run that he had that year. I mean, getting the catch he made just to win the division, and then what he did against the Chargers.
The punt returns?
The Chargers, the punt return. And I mean, the AFC Championship game, obviously the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, there's a very underrated championship run that guy had.
So Michael O'Malley says, with Ben back and the D, does Tony think the Steelers are a Super Bowl team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I do. I mean, provided he's back. Provided he's 2016, 2017, 2018 Ben. You know, he's never going to be what he was in his prime. I mean, he's 38 years old, but if he can be 80, 90%, yeah, I think he makes, like we talked about, he makes everybody on that offense better. He makes Vance McDonald better, provided he's still here. He makes Juju better. He makes the other receivers better. He makes the running game better. He makes the O-line better because he gets to call out protection. So, yeah, I think, you know, I'm not going to say Super Bowl team because that's, you know, going from 8-8 and having the question marks with the quarterback at the moment. But if he's back, they're definitely a Super Bowl contender. How could they not be with that defense? And if he's healthy again, how could they not be a Super Bowl contender? Absolutely.
You know, I like that, and I kind of agree with you. But let's rank the AFC teams. Where would you rank the Steelers right now in the AFC?
Oh, right now I'd rank them where they finished last year, second, and that's without Ben. You know, I think they're the second best team even without Ben. You know, I mean, you can make a case for the Browns based on their talent, you know, their overall talent on both offense and defense, but you still got to put it together, and they have yet to do that. You still have to prove it, and they have yet to do that. So I'm going to say right now without Ben, they're second.
Okay, I'm talking about the conference, though, Tony.
Oh, I think you meant the AFC North. I'm sorry.
If we go Kansas City first.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the North. Well, with Ben in there, I'd say they're definitely one of the top 5 or 6 teams with Ben in there.
I think they're 3.
Really? Hey, I like that better.
I would probably put them at 3, Baltimore at 2 right now, and Kansas City at 1. And that's over any of the AFC South teams, Houston or Tennessee. That's over New England.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, if
now
Brady doesn't
Sean
come
Manahan
back,
agrees with me. There you go.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Brady doesn't come back, then that changes everything for the Patriots. So,
Here's a great question, Tony, and I'm going to throw this to you.
okay.
Is Butler a good DC, or is it the individuals? And that's asked by Jonas Wedlick.
Well, I mean, what did Jim Leland say? If you have stars, you're smart. If you have a bunch of average players, all of a sudden you're an idiot. I think it's a combination of both. Honestly, I mean, look at how good the offense was in 2018, and look at how bad it was last year, and look at how our opinion changed to Randy Fichtner. Last year, Keith Butler, he was public enemy number one for a number of years there. All of a sudden, you get Devin Bush, you get Minka, you get Steven Nelson. If I missed anybody, but all of a sudden, Keith Butler is, you don't hear people calling for his head every week. So I think it's a combination of both. I think you need good players, but you also need a good coach. And I think last year he proved that he could do a pretty decent job if you give him enough pieces to work with.
I'm going to answer this one. Steeler fan frenzy with Flip, contributor to the website. Will Big Dan be with the Steelers in 2020? Will he start? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that actually, I'm going to say no to starting. I'm going to say he's going to be with the Steelers next year because of being a depth piece. And I think he has naked pictures of somebody in the organization. That's something that Jeff Hartman and I have talked about for a long time. And Danny Smith Jr. have naked pictures of somebody. They've got blackmail like crazy.
It's just a testament to you don't have to be a star or even a major contributor. You could still have a pretty lengthy NFL career, and he's had one to this point. If he would retire tomorrow, he has no complaints.
Tape Boys, this isn't really a question, it's a comment, and I like this. A few years ago, I wanted us to take Lamar Jackson over Terrell Edmonds. I can't see how we pass on Jalen Hurts. Doesn't help now, but futures, and we need a quarterback who can move. Now, here's the thing on that one. Jalen Hurts came out and looked absolutely amazing, and I think his stock skyrocketed, especially with the mobile quarterbacks that we're seeing being, I don't want to even call it flavor of the month, but they're becoming a little more of the norm right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there definitely is a place for Jalen Hurts. I could see him possibly sneaking into the first round now.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. After the weekend he had, we talked about this a few weeks ago when we mentioned him. He's probably going to him and like a guy like J.K. Dobbins are probably going to rise into the first round by the time the draft gets here. So, it's probably I would go in a different direction simply because I think you have to win now, but it's not going to get to that point anyway because he's not going to make it to the second round.
Now, Solarverse kind of disagrees just because of how he looked against Clemson, looking like a deer in the headlights. But, I don't think he's going to be there.
Right. Me either. Now, I don't think he is going to be there either.
Now, Gyro thinks he would be there. Tape Boys asked, where do you take him if he's there?
I think you can get a guy like that. There's always, like you said, those quarterbacks are becoming more prevalent in today's NFL, and that's what teams are using to win. But as long as you're paying Big Ben $33 million a year, and as long as you're building a team around him, I think you have to build the team around him. So I think you have to try to find pieces for now. I think you can go out and get a Jalen Hurts type quarterback in future drafts, and you can go in that direction. You can move your team in that direction. But right now, with a second round pick, if he's there, no, I don't take him. I go in any number of different directions, whether it be running back, O-line, receiver, tight end, even a pass rusher. That's where I would go first before I would go quarterback.
Well, the thing about it is, if Bud Dupree signs, and if it's just a franchise tag, pass rusher's not getting you there this year. So what positions are getting you there? It's probably wide receiver and running back.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Taylor had a great weekend. He's not going to last to the second round now. And a lot of people were asking about Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
Dobbins is another guy. will he be there for the Steeler pick? So if you had to choose between Dobbins and a guy like Hurts, saying that they are there when the Steelers pick in the second round, you're saying Dobbins?
Me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think he's more of a now kind of player, and Hurts is more of a future player, which would be great, but you have to maximize the time you have with number 7.
Wow, here's a great question. And I just cut you off of that subject, but as we keep on going, let me circle back to that real quick. I think Hurts is a great player. I think he's going to be a great player in this league. I'm kind of subscribing to your plan to go ahead and look for now and who's going to help you in 2020. That could bite us, but that's what I'm thinking right now. Thaddeus Kennedy, another great contributor to our podcast. Bad. Who was the better punt returner, Randall L. or Brown? Wow, is that a tough one? I'm going to say Randall L. And I'm probably going to get a lot of people disagree with me on that. I just felt like there was so much more magic when he was back there early on than with Antonio Brown. You had the magic with him, with AB, but I thought, oh yeah, was the guy for me. And I just have great memories of that guy as a punt returner. What do you think?
I'd probably go with Antonio Brown, but it's almost a toss up. I think mainly because I think Brown was the better. Obviously, he was the better, or is the better overall player. If he's still in the league, he's definitely the better overall player. So I would have to lean towards him as far as a punt returner. If that was all he did, I think he'd be better at that than Randall L.
So now here's a good one. Ezra says Brown hands down, and then he changes a little bit more and says, and really it's Rod Woodson. When Rod Woodson came in, he was pretty
more of a
fun
kick
to
returner,
watch.
though.
Yeah, but he returned punts.
Yeah,
Let me see all 3 of those guys
and
raise you a Lewis Lips.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If we talk about the greatest punt returners in Steeler history, I might have to say Lewis Lips and Randall L. ahead of those guys. But there's a lot that disagree with me. Tate Boys, Snowman says Brown heads down.
Hey, if there was a draft and I was drafting number 4 in that group, I'd be happy no matter who I got. So I think that's a testament to how good all 4 of those guys were.
Yeah, Lewis Lips. Okay, here's another question. Tate Boy says, ooh, Lou 83. Who's the better 83? Was it Louis Lips or was it Heath Miller?
Oh, well, that's an easy one for me. Louis Lips was one of my idols growing up. So Louis Lips for sure.
Now, here's the thing. If you weren't watching back in 84 when he was a rookie, you wouldn't agree with that. But a lot of guys, even now, don't even know who he was. Mike Smith.
We both saw it at the same time.
Mike Smith says, so not Ryan Switzer?
Ouch. Ouch.
I tell you what, some of the best hands. He's got fantastic hands. But Ryan Switzer is immobile. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And he got more immobile the second season than in his first season. He became a fair catch guy.
Right. He's not even a better punt returner than Eli Rogers.
So let me ask you this. Where is Deontay Johnson in this mix?
Well, he's got the potential to be right there with all those guys. After his rookie season, I think that one he had against the Cardinals was fantastic. So he has that ability to be one of those kind of great players on special teams and obviously in the offense. Well,
there you go. Well, more people don't think Switzer is good at all, but he'll be back this year. Switzer can catch balls before the game to warm up Ben. He doesn't have to move there.
That's right.
That's why he's there. Ezra says Heath to me was always a sure shot. Look, I'm a big Heath Miller guy, but I'm definitely a Louis Lips player. He was one of my guys too. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the guys that made me fall in love with the Steelers because I was 12 when he came into the league.
Mm-hmm.
And you coupled him with John Stallworth coming back from injury. That 84 season is a favorite season of mine. They were 9-7 and made it to the AFC Championship game.
Right. I mean, he was the first team All-Pro in that era. They didn't have too many of those kind of players at that time.
No. So if you don't know a lot about Louis Lips, see if you can get some highlights on YouTube of this guy. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, we've come to the end of the show, Tony.
It was a great show.
And what have we learned here? We learned that the Steelers have more intimidating players than we actually thought on defense. We've learned that some people want Jalen Hurts, some people don't. We've learned that we really can't tell who the best 83 is. And we learned that it's just fun to hang out on a Monday or on a weekday in March.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, thank you so much. We appreciate all of you. We'll do the Q&A next time. You'll see Tony once again next week at this time with me. You'll see me once again on Thursday night on the Steelers preview, along with Jeff Schofield and Dave Hartman. I did that on purpose. So before you correct me. So like Michael O'Malley's saying, hit like, tell a friend. That's the most important thing. That's how you support our show. So we appreciate all of you. So Tony, we're going to go the Roddy Piper route because we can't talk about you being hungover anymore. So what we can say is just when you think you figured out all the answers,
we keep changing the questions. See you guys next week.
Good night.